Hi everybody, welcome in. We're gonna give everybody a second to get in here and then we will start back up. Aries and Mama, if you want to request back up. Sorry, I didn't mean to kick anybody if you didn't hear. I know people are saying there's a lag. So we'll do the one reset and that's all I can do. I can't promise anything. And I mean, double check definitely that your app is updated in the App Store. If everybody can please tap, it really helps a lot. I know we were up pretty big. Thank you, Carol. So if everybody can tap and everything like that, we're going to get everybody back in here. We're doing True Crime Thursday. I'm going to expand Aries. I'm sorry to everyone that got kicked out a second ago. I hope you were wearing your hard hats or whatnot, so that way when you got dropped safely. But everybody tap, please. And Aries, the floor is yours again.
I was gonna say you just dropped them on their heads. That was rude.
I know, I didn't mean to, but
I'm just kidding. So I'm gonna just repeat just in case nobody, or not nobody, but in case some people didn't hear it. Basically, her defense was she didn't know she was pregnant. The attorney is quoted to say that it's the hospital's fault, that they're the direct and true cause of the unaliving, and when asked how to justify why she put her baby in the trash can, they basically said, well, what else was she supposed to do? You put her on all kinds of medication and you're supposed to watch her, and that's not her fault. The suit has been filed, her lawsuit, she's suing the hospital. It's been filed in July of 2024, and there has been no further updates or reports about her lawsuit ever since then. Yes. Yes, I feel you, girl. I feel you. The timeline. So Alexee arrives at the hospital at 11:47 p.m. 20 minutes later, she was given 3 different medications. Documents state that some of the medications have warning in regards to the pregnant women. At 12:51 a.m., her labs came back with a positive pregnancy test, and the staff gave her the same 3 medications. From 1:39 a.m. to 1:57 a.m., which was 18 minutes, Alexee was left in the bathroom alone. Around 2:26 a.m., her baby was found already unalived. That was 29 minutes after her birth. You can round it up to 30. It was 29. Where her case went wrong is the APD really messed up, and the officer on scene did not read Alexee her rights. So after the situation had been explained to him, and after the officer learned about the newborn being unalived at 2:40 a.m., he didn't read her rights. The body cam footage lasts 2 hours. I'm going to take her picture off. The body cam footage lasts 2 hours. It begins at 2:40 a.m. and it ends at 4:49 a.m. And after looking through the entire transcripts, because I did on Monday, I looked through the entire transcripts of that YouTube video, they did not read her rights at all. That one was the one that was completely unredacted. So understanding that she did this and we want her to have her trial, but what are your Miranda rights and why is her trial being stalled? So your Miranda rights are, and this is directly from Google, they're a set of constitutional protections informing individuals of their rights when in police custody, particularly during questioning. So these rights include the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, the warning that anything can be said and used against you in the court, and your Miranda rights protect you from self-incrimination. It's your Fifth Amendment. So it's in the Constitution, and it must be taken to the Supreme Court to get the key evidence that they need for her case. So some people believe that if they're arrested and not read their rights, that they can escape conviction, and that's not true. If police fail to read a suspect his or her Miranda rights, the prosecutor can't use anything the suspect says as evidence against the suspect at trial. So why are they not able to prosecute her? Because when they arrived at the hospital, the only evidence they had was the body cam footage. And because of the fact that they did not read her rights, the body cam footage was ruled inadmissible. And they added on top of that the HIPAA, the doctor-patient confidentiality. So that was another, like, insult to injury on top of it. I do kind of want to show the hospital footage real quick, and then I will be done. It doesn't show anything graphic or anything, and it should be pretty quick. Hold on. Basically, it's to show you a timeline and a visual of everything that's happened. So, sorry, I'm making sure I have it rewinded at the right part.
You're good. Thank you, everybody, for tapping and liking and sharing and all that jazz. I appreciate it very much. If you're just coming in, we're doing True Crime Thursday, just as a reminder. So welcome in.
Okay. Okay, so let me play this. This was the hallway. And she's running to the bathroom. And then a little bit later, this is a minute and 30 seconds later, her mom goes to check on her the first time. She goes to check on her. She doesn't stay for long. I'd say she stays for about 10 to 15 seconds. And she leaves. And then she comes back. I think it's about 9 minutes later that she checks on her again for the second time. She stays a little bit longer this time when she checks on her. I know this might seem a little boring, but...
No, it's wild they left her in the bathroom that long.
Oh, yeah. This guy checks up on her a lot. If you watch this fully unedited, he's, like, standing there. He's, like, the one that, like, is waiting for her to get out, pretty much. So he's probably assigned to her case. She walks away. What are we at? 18 minutes? So... a little bit later.
Given she's given birth, you would think they'd hear something in the bathroom.
He waits outside for her. Yep. We're watching the footage from when Alexee Trevizo was in the hospital. So this is when she gave birth to her baby and left her baby in the trash can. It's crazy. Let me know if I like get muffled or anything. So he waits outside for the bathroom, lets her know. It's at this point the doctor comes out and she points at the door. She comes out from there, points at the door. Yep. They're talking about her. And then 25:47. Sorry, I have the times written down. I'm looking at it. He goes back to the door. And he's letting her know at this point, hey, Alexee, we're going to have somebody come open the door. I'm assuming because she comes over there with keys. Okay. As soon as she comes over, that door opens. As soon as she comes over, that door opens. It takes her a second. This is about like 20 seconds from when the door opened to when she actually came out. So she comes out. At this point, he's looking in the bathroom, they're looking in the bathroom. And a direct quote from the security guard was, "Finally, we got her to open the door and there was blood everywhere. She was cleaning it up, so we took her back to her room." So that's why they're going back and they're checking that bathroom. They're like, what the heck happened in here? So they're checking it. What is my next time? 31:38. At this point, they enter the bathroom again, checking it. And then it's 40:30. Housekeeping arrives. And she goes and checks out the state of the bathroom. At this point, I'm going to tell you, there is a 15-minute gap from right here, from when she starts cleaning and when she finds the baby. So when I say that, I don't mean to like say it like if it's her fault or anything. They had no clue. There was no way they could have known. 53. And so they're cleaning. There's two people at this point that are cleaning. I think she's the housekeeping, and because it's so bad, they're having somebody assist her. I don't know. This is just my assumptions. And they're about to look.
Right, Kez? You would think that would have been their first instinct, is to check everything.
Right now she's going, and then she's gonna come back and look in the trash can. She went in there, and she's coming back. She's gonna look. And you can tell the moment it had to be a very loud reaction, because these ladies, or these people, they peeked their head around the corner. That was the moment they found her. Or him. I apologize. And everybody knew. That's when they found her baby. They performed life-saving measures, but at that point he was already gone. Like, they tried, but at that point he was already gone. So that's just to show you the timeline of everything, so you have like a visual of how everything went down. Like, it's messed up when you think about it. And
So how long was she alone in the bathroom?
she was alone in the bathroom. Let me look at my notes. So, where'd it go?
Thank you, everybody, for tapping.
From 1:39 a.m. to 1:57 a.m. she was left in the bathroom alone. So that was 18 minutes that she was by herself. And then, so 18 minutes plus the 29 minutes is when they found the baby.
And you said that because they, like, basically the whole case is like, how do I even say it? Basically, you might get off on this simply because they didn't read her Miranda rights.
She very well could. It really just depends, because at this point they have to wait. I don't know if it's like the same thing, Supreme Court and New Mexico Supreme Court, but it says they have to take it to New Mexico Supreme Court, and then that state will decide whether or not that evidence should be used to try her. Right now, they haven't really made any plans of like when the Supreme Court trial would be, when they're going to be doing that stuff. Like, there's really no plans of that. So that honestly, like this whole thing could take it could take years.
Yeah.
Years.
Which is insane because she could have a family by then and actually have kids and everything.
And see, she's already done a year of college. Like, she's living her life like nothing happened. And to add insult to injury, she named the child after herself. Her name's Alexee. She named the child Alex.
Damn. That's heartless.
Yes. And so, for anybody that's curious, it's 18 minutes that she was in there by herself. It's 29 minutes that till they found the baby, and that's 47 minutes all in total for all that. And they knew she was pregnant too.
So it was 29 minutes after she left the bathroom that it took them to find the baby?
Yes, 29 minutes after.
Jeez.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I think that the hospital does share some negligence in this because of the fact that they left her for so long. And she was pregnant, but I do think that her being 19, her knowing the difference between right and wrong, she shouldn't get a free pass.
What's wild to me is like they didn't read her Miranda rights, but one of the biggest things I remember about the entire like police footage or police cam or whatever was the mom kept like asking her like very incriminating questions, and the officers were the ones saying, let's not talk about that right now. Like, ma'am, you probably shouldn't be asking that right now. Probably because they didn't want to compromise their case, which is ironic, but they also kind of were protecting her in a way because they were telling her not to answer the questions from her mom once they realized she was overage.
Yes, and so her mother claims that she didn't know, but also at the same time in the body footage, she directly says, "We talked about this." So, what does "we talked about this" mean? If you guys had no idea she was pregnant, if that's the defense that we're going with, then why, when she admitted, because she said, the baby wasn't breathing, he wasn't crying, I put him in the trash can. I got scared, is what she said. And her mom started yelling at her and said, well, we talked about this. Like, why would you do this? We talked about this.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's an interesting case when you look at it because, like, if it were you, I mean, obviously you wouldn't do that, but if it were you in that position, if you did something or they suspected you of a crime and they didn't read you your rights, you would sue them. It's a violation of your rights, like any other person. However, she did do something illegal. She did something wrong.
Now, did they, I don't know if you know this, but did they ever, like, say there was anything mentally? Because why didn't she cry out for help? It's not illegal to have a baby. So why didn't she cry out for help?
She they've never really addressed it fully. The articles that I've seen, because I don't think she's done any interviews, she's not really willing to talk about it that much. But from the body cam footage and from what the articles say, that she was scared, that she didn't know, she was scared, she didn't know what was happening, and then when he came out, he wasn't breathing and he wasn't crying. So that was like her logic of that's what I should do. But I don't think they said anything of like, oh, she wasn't all there or anything. You know what I mean? Because the main defense of them is she didn't know she was pregnant. And she's still with the boyfriend that, or her baby daddy. So I mean, it's a crazy case. I am looking forward to the update of that because her baby deserves justice. It was in the state of New Mexico. I'm not sure. Artesia, if that's like the city.
Kez asked how she cut her own umbilical cord. I always just assumed she delivered the placenta in the time she was in there.
I think they said something about that because she was still bleeding too. When the mom and her were arguing, the doctor was like, okay, and she shut it down. It was like, number one priority right now is mom is still bleeding. And she's talking about Alexee. So I'm not sure if like she took the placenta out. I'd have to actually go back and look at the footage. She was there. She complained about back pain, severe back pain.
Which delivering placenta is not easy because most times doctors, as gross as it sounds, they have to kind of reach in there to separate it from your uterine wall for you to be able to push it out. Because I remember that with my son. So it's not something that's entirely easy. And if you don't do it right, you can bleed a lot.
And I think the more messed up part was that when they found the child, the baby, the infant, the newborn was placed into the trash can in a bag, sealed. The bag was sealed, tied a knot into it, and then another bag was placed over that to conceal what was on the bottom. She was full term. They say in the body cam footage that she was full term.
It goes to show she knows what she was doing was wrong because she tried to conceal it.
Yes. Because if you didn't think what you were doing was wrong, you would have came out and said, I did this, I gave birth, I don't know what I was doing, he's not breathing, whatever the case is. Like, you're in a hospital. Artesia, Artesia, New Mexico.
And the fact that she knew a nurse or an aide was at least at the door, she could have said, I need help.
Yes, and when her mom checked on her, both of those times, first of all, her mom checked on her a minute after she was in there, and then 9 minutes after. So that would have been 10 minutes after she entered the bathroom. What I'm wondering is why she didn't tell her mother, or her mother knew. Her mother had to have known, hearing that. I'm pronouncing it correct. Okay. I don't know if I was.
Did the autopsy say if the baby took a breath?
The autopsy reported that the baby was born alive. So the baby died unalived of suffocation.
From being placed between the two trash bags.
Yes. So that's why in one of the articles that I read, they put she allegedly did that. Because that's how they found him. I want to know if it says allegedly. What does allegedly mean? Like, she didn't do it and the hospital staff did? Like, allegedly? Sorry, that's crazy.
You're good.
I think they have to use that term until she is convicted.
Yeah, otherwise, if she's not convicted, it can come back on them.
Oh yeah, they could sue. She'd sue. Like she's doing right now. Yeah, but she's the lady that did that. She gave birth and then put her baby in the trash can and then now is suing the hospital because of what she did. Alexee Trevizo. So I'm gonna type it out in the comments. It's Alexee. No, not Alexee.
Yeah, she claimed the baby was deceased, and then I know for a little bit there was the conflict with the autopsy. People were kind of debating on if the baby was born and took a breath, or if like the CPR or whatever they tried to do on it had caused the baby to look like it had taken a breath.
Oh, yeah. I think that was like when the case first had came out, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just remember that being a big conversation too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what they would look for during an autopsy is to see if the lungs ever inflated, which when you give CPR, you're pushing air into the baby, so
Mm-hmm.
I guess that could be hard.
She didn't want the help, Heather. I don't think, in my opinion.
I think that regardless on whether her mom knew or not, I think she was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, she didn't think that she would get caught. Maybe she thought they weren't going to take the trash out and that baby was going to be there for 2-3 days and they would not know whose baby it was and she would just get away scot-free. Like, genuinely, I you can't make sense out of nonsense. So, I mean, we'll never know why she did what she did.
What I'm curious about is after you give birth, you bleed a lot.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know how, and I don't know why they didn't question it that it was all over the bathroom. Like, did they think her period was that bad? I don't get it.
Yes, it was a full-term pregnancy, and see, that's the thing. That's what's crazy. Okay, it was a full-term pregnancy, and they knew. So in the details thing that I have here, it says, so she arrived there at 11:47 p.m. on that day. So that would have been January. I think it was like the 27th of 2023. I might be wrong on that, but I know it was January of 2023. She arrives there at 11:47. 20 minutes later, which would have been 12:07 a.m., she was given 3 different medications. And then at 12:51 a.m., her labs came back that she was pregnant. So they knew she went into the bathroom at 1:39. So they knew at least for 45 minutes before she went in there that she was pregnant. They knew. She knew. She can't even say she didn't know because before she went to the bathroom for 45 minutes, she knew she was pregnant. They had to have told her.
Can you show the pictures again of when she said she didn't know?
Yes. So, if I can find this damn green screen. Okay, so this is one of them where she's doing her cheerleading. This is her cheerleading outfit. Right? And then this is her again. And people would argue and say, well, that's her far away. You don't really know if that's her. That could just be another pregnant girl. It's the same uniform, but, it could be another pregnant girl, right? Whatever. If you go to this one, you can't see anything. Do you need to should I turn the comments off for a second?
No, they're saying they can't see the screen. Like you're a blank screen. Try turning your camera off and bringing it back up.
Oh no.
TikTok's acting funky.
Do you see this? Papa, can you see me?
I can see it. I don't know if they can see it.
I can see it too.
They're saying they can't see it now.
No, let me drop out. Hold on. Just a picture of me. Damn. Hold on.
They're all saying now we can see it, but Aries isn't even up here anymore.
Are they talking about the True Crime Thursday?
Aries. It says you're asking, but it's not letting me accept you. Try again, Aries. Go out and come back in. don't. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
You know what it is? It's probably because of the audio lag.
Is there an audio lag?
They said earlier, or somebody said earlier, that there was an audio lag, so maybe that they're hearing me before they're seeing me.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I mean, TikTok's acting weird, you guys. You gotta just bear with us on this one.
It was up there, man. It was up there. I'm telling you. Hold on. Okay. That was kind of funny. So, can we see this?
Okay, they can see that.
Okay. Okay. So, this is her uniform. This was her school. You can even see it says Artesia. There's this picture. If everyone can see it. It's the same uniform. You can't see my finger, but it's okay. It's the same uniform. Some people would argue that you can't really see her face, so you don't know if that's her. Whatever. I also have this picture. So this is again to show.
How many do they have?
Right. So again to show like her stomach is flat, like it's not poking out like a pregnant woman. Her stomach is flat. This is when they went to her house to arrest her and say, "Hey, you're being charged with this."
I remember even like the cheerleading coach and the people on her team had kind of said they weren't surprised she was pregnant because everybody kept saying like they thought she was, and she would just say, "No, I'm gaining weight."
Honestly, I'd have to look at, because I got this picture from Google, so I'd have to Google her name again. And then I could tell you when that was posted. If she went to the hospital, back pain, the hospital knew she was pregnant. Yeah. And so this is another picture of her on the side. And she's doing like the cheerleading thing. First of all, you're not even supposed to be doing that while you're pregnant. Like, you could carry like a little here and there. You're not supposed to be carrying heavy stuff. A person,
Yeah.
I really doubt you're supposed to be doing this while you're pregnant. I don't know.
She was in denial. She was telling everybody she wasn't pregnant.
She swore up and down she didn't know. But, I mean, when you look at her running to the hospital room, she was covering her butt.
Yeah.
I'll say when you're about to give birth, it does feel like you have to take a massive poop. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. That's literally what it feels like.
So this picture was posted on Twitter. Let me go look at it. So this picture was posted on Twitter in June of 2023. So a little less than 6 months later. About 6 months with the date. And the fact that she went there with back pain and they found out she was pregnant and they just let her go and be in the bathroom by herself for 20, that is it blows my mind. Wow. Oh, it says, the caption actually, I didn't even see this. It says, when Alexee Trevizo's cheerleading uniform had to be altered to fit her growing baby bump, what did her mother think was happening? I think mom is complicit and should be charged. In the hospital video, she said, "Where did you put the baby?" And we talked about this. She knew and did nothing. I didn't know that. I didn't know they had to make her a new cheerleading outfit.
She definitely gained enough weight they would have had to.
Yeah. Anyone saying that she didn't know she was pregnant and defending her probably hasn't been pregnant before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I have with my case. Those are all the pictures. There's no updates. If there are any updates, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody doesn't have any more questions or anything, that's pretty much it when it comes to her case. Oh yeah. Honestly, I feel like there's so many questions here, but they're not even for me. It's more for the hospital and her and everybody involved.
Yeah.
I think the baby daddy knew at least. Sorry.
I think she and he knew.
Mm-hmm. Let me take that down. All right, but
I
I'm good.
honestly think everyone knew.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you couldn't.
I mean, the nurses couldn't do anything until they had the test, though. Like, otherwise, they opened themselves up to malpractice. So, I can see why they didn't do other things first, but I think she knew.
Yeah. I think it was just kind of a case of they didn't know what to do because it was just so quick. Like, I think she went there knowing that she was going to give birth, but didn't have any intentions of taking home that baby.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, the hospital didn't know until they gave her a pregnancy test. She didn't tell them when she arrived there. He didn't tell them when she arrived there.
All right. Does anybody else have questions for Aries? Does anybody else have questions for Aries? Or are we ready for the last one?
I know, I'm excited to hear yours.
I'm excited too, because this is a new one that I learned about today. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Let me put it in the background. Okay.
Just so everyone knows, Mallory is an overachiever.
I know, right? Okay. Welcome in, everybody. Don't forget to tap, please, and thank you. Share out the live, all of that fun stuff. Can everybody see the background? Just making sure.
I can.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So this is Misty Donna Copsey, and in 1992, specifically September of 1992, Misty was begging her mom to go to the Puyallup Fair in Washington. And her mom agreed that she could go with her 15-year-old friend, and Misty was 14 at the time. Now, her mom worked the night shift, so one of the things that they had to work out was essentially Misty had to find a way to get home. Now, her and her friend both lived kind of outside of Puyallup a little bit, but still within like a good distance. So it was about 8 miles from Misty's home and a couple miles from her friend's home. And essentially, her mom was a caregiver for a woman in her late 90s. So there was no way she was going to be able to leave and go pick Misty up at any point. So Misty and her mom talked about it, and she agreed that she was going to catch the bus and come home later that evening. So at about 8:40 p.m., Misty realizes that she has missed the last bus to go to her town. And she has to figure out what exactly to do. So she calls her mom. Her mom is like, I need you to figure out a way to get home. And she suggests that she could call her friend Reuben Schmidt. And Reuben was 18 years old. She had met him because they lived in a trailer park together when her and her mom had lived in Puyallup, and they had recently moved to, I think it was like Sumter, Washington or something like that. But Diana was very adamant that Misty not call Reuben. And Misty and her friend Trina talked about it. Misty ended up calling Reuben, and Reuben said, absolutely not. I am not going to like come get you because I don't have gas money. And essentially Misty, Trina talked about it a little bit more, and then Misty called Ruben again, told him how to get inside her house, where he could find the money to get gas, and Ruben allegedly still did not come get her. He said, nope, not gonna do it. So this is on September 17th of 1992. Just a reminder. Now, I want to tell you to keep in mind, there's going to be a lot of names that are thrown out here, and this case is still unsolved, just so we're clear. So basically, it's about 8:45 at night, and Trina says that she and Misty both decide that they're going to separate, and Misty's going to walk home and Trina's going to walk home. Diane, who is Misty's mom, had told her, call me when you get home so that I know you're okay. But Diane never got the call. So she spends all night worrying about Misty. And on the 18th, she gets home because she worked through the night. And she just expects Misty to be there, maybe watching TV. Maybe she came home and fell asleep. She had briefly thought maybe she got a ride from Ruben and she didn't want to tell me because she was afraid I'd be upset, and kind of wrote it off as that. But when she gets home, Misty's not there, and she didn't go to school that day either. So that September 17th, 1992 is the last time anybody saw Misty Copsey alive. September 18th, this is kind of a timeline of the day's events because it was a very big day for her mom. So Diana, who is Misty's mother, starts out by calling Trina, her friend that she was with the night before, Ruben, her own mother, Misty's grandmother, other friends, and eventually 911. Now, Trina and Trina's family were at school and work, so neither of them answered the phone that morning. And Misty's grandma didn't really have any information because there wasn't any information for her to have. She hadn't talked to her granddaughter the night before or anything. So Ruben did answer his phone, however, and basically told Diana that Misty had called him, asked for a ride, but he didn't have enough gas to go get her and bring her back, so he was like, nope, not gonna do it. After she spoke to Ruben, Misty drove to Trina's house, left a note on the front door, and said, give her a phone call, it was urgent. And then she proceeded to call 911, and they essentially told Diana that they were going to have to wait 30 days to file a missing persons report on Misty. So Diana kind of sits with that. She's trying to figure out what to do. And that one was with the Puyallup Police Department that had told her you're going to have to wait the 30 days. Now, because they lived in Pierce County, she went missing. It's 1992, remember. So the concept to us today is wild, but you'll kind of hear why I think they were saying this originally. But Diana decided, okay, we live in Pierce County, so I'm going to go to Pierce County Sheriff's Department and file her missing there. She went missing in Puyallup, so technically they were the ones that had jurisdiction, but she did go to the Pierce County Sheriff's Department 1:30 in the afternoon and finds out that the 911 dispatcher had been way off base with 30 days remark. They shouldn't have told her that. They should have filed all of that stuff. It was just being mismanaged by the other police department. However, they did unfortunately have to tell Misty and explain that because even though she lives in Pierce County, she went missing in Puyallup, so they couldn't do anything because jurisdictionally, Puyallup had the means and everything to cover it. So she basically is left with this scenario where one police department is telling her, no, it's not right that they're telling you that you have to wait 30 days. And then the other police department that's telling her you got to wait 30 days. We're not going to just take your report and file it. So she did try to report it. The police were informed. They basically didn't do anything about it. So up to this point, 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, September 18th, a day after Misty had gone missing, Diana is the only one who is actively trying to find her daughter. She is the only one that is looking for her and kind of heading the investigation. So Trina and Diana finally connect, and Trina explains to her that at 8:45 p.m., keep in mind Misty had missed the bus at 8:40. So at 8:45 p.m., Miss Trina says Misty and her decided they would go separate ways, and Misty would walk the 8 miles home to Sumner, and then Trina would walk a couple miles because she didn't live that far away. And she had not heard from Misty since that moment in time. So on a hunch, Diana, later that day, we're still on the 18th, decided that she was going to call Reuben again. And Reuben was not home, but he had a teenage roommate who was like 16 years old, and that roommate answered the phone, and his name was James Tinsley. And when Reuben's roommate was speaking to Misty, he told Diana that Misty had called twice that night. So before, Reuben had only talked about the one time he said he didn't have gas, and then that was it. He hung up, they didn't talk. So Diana, from Reuben's roommate, is hearing that Reuben got 2 calls from Misty that evening, and the second one had been the one where she explained, you can go into my home, here's where you can find the money, you can get gas with it, and just come get me. So Diana hangs up with the roommate. She spends some time looking for Misty still, and then she decides that she's going to call Reuben again, because in her heart of hearts, she thinks Reuben knows more than he's letting on. She's already caught him in a lie. Like, we're not even 24 hours into Misty having gone missing, and Reuben has already lied about something potentially. So Reuben picks up the phone, and Misty just directly asks where her kid is at. Reuben would go on to explain that his roommate had gotten it all wrong, and that when he left the house that evening, because the roommate had told Diana that Reuben had eventually left the house, that he had gone with his uncle to a party and then woken up hours later. This really didn't sit well with Diana because she already had her suspicions, and it was kind of piling up and not looking so great for Reuben. So the thing with Reuben is that it's really important to understand too, they had a history. So in the beginning, I had mentioned that Misty and Reuben knew each other from when they lived in a trailer park. Reuben was, I want to emphasize this, 18 years old. Misty was 14 at the time she went missing. So Diana, Misty's mom, she just wasn't for the relationship. Like, she didn't like them being around each other. At one point, she had heard Reuben and Misty talking on the phone, and he had told her that she made him, like, she turned him on, essentially. That's the word I'm going to use, which Diana had felt was really inappropriate. And it was also found that Reuben had an eye for younger girls. So at the time, when Misty had called him and asked if he could come get her, he actually had a 13-year-old girlfriend who was over at the apartment, which was later found out. And she had essentially gotten jealous when Misty called the second time and left soon after that, which was when it was said Reuben then left the home or the apartment. So he was prone to dating young girls, and he was also like very temperamental and prone to kind of violent outrages. So the 17th, Misty goes missing. The 18th, Misty's mom tries to file 2 separate missing person reports. One police station takes her seriously, but they can't take over because she didn't go missing in their jurisdiction. The other tells her she has to wait 30 days to file the police report, blah, blah, blah. September 19th, a female classmate claims that Misty had actually called her and said that she was okay. So 2 days after Misty went missing, a classmate is saying, oh yeah, she called me, she says she's okay. September 23rd, 6 days after Diana went missing, or not Diana, 6 days after Misty went missing, Diana had finally annoyed the Puyallup Police Department enough to the point to where they were like, okay, we're going to take like a police report. We have the jurisdiction over it. They ended up appointing Sergeant Herm Carver to oversee the investigation, but he basically, the entire police department actually made Diana feel as if they just thought Misty was a runaway and that she would be home soon, and that she was making Diana was making too big of a deal of her disappearance. He also had a thing where he wasn't overly fond of Diana herself. So Misty's mom had several DUI charges, and she's very open. Like, she never tried to hide the fact that she struggled with alcohol abuse. However, she was able to give Misty a stable home environment and cared for her a lot. Like, she did things just to try to make sure that Misty grew up with the best life she could possibly give her. However, one thing that Sergeant Herm Carver didn't like a lot was that at one point, Diana was getting food stamps when they lived in Puyallup County, or Puyallup, Washington. And then when they moved to Sumner, she got a job and she didn't tell them that she had gotten the job. So this was considered welfare fraud. The thing is that she was in her 20s, and she began to feel really bad that she was collecting the stamps while she had a job. So she went into the office, she explained to them what had happened, and because she had come forward and she had told everybody, like, this is what I'm going through, I know I was getting these when I was working, they worked out a payment plan. So she paid everything back in time and a deferred sentence. So essentially it was there. Everybody knew she had kind of done this, but it wasn't recognized that she had been the one that turned herself in. And essentially Sergeant Carver used this to say, like, the mom isn't the best mom. So it took police about 2 weeks to really get an investigation going and acknowledge that something other than running away may have happened to Misty. And in the days and weeks after, Diana was able to actually track down the bus driver who had been doing the route that evening. And basically he had told Diana that Misty had asked him when the next bus for her county would be coming through, and he explained that there were no routes in service via this means anymore, but that she could catch the next bus to Tacoma, and then from Tacoma she could catch a bus to her home. But by the time he was explaining this part to Misty, she was already disinterested and walking away from him. He said it was like she didn't really hear him, didn't want to hear it, and he kind of carried on and did his job and went about it. Diana would also put up flyers all over the town, especially in the downtown area where Misty had disappeared. And then on September 29th, Sergeant Carver finally went to the school where Misty had gone to school and spoke with at least two classmates who claimed that, number one, the female who had said that she had heard from Misty previously, like 2 days after Misty had gone missing, but then also another student reported that she had gone to a concert on September 21st and she had seen Misty at the concert. It's important to note, like, just right here, right now, later on, these were both actually found to be like lies, not unfounded, but just straight out lies, because these are 14-year-old girls, and Misty was actually a really popular girl in school. So they were acquaintances, but they weren't friends with Misty, and they had kind of thought like attaching themselves to Misty would kind of build their popularity somehow. 14 years old, the frontal lobe is not fully fucking developed. I understand what they did is wrong, but I don't think they comprehended the severity of their actions at the time. However, because of those two girls, Sergeant Carver left the school on September 29th, told Diana that he was removing Misty from the missing persons database, and she would be listed as a runaway. He wanted nothing else to do with her. So within a matter of 2 weeks, Diana went from being told she had to wait 30 days to finally getting a police report filed, to her daughter being looked at as maybe missing, and then back to her being a runaway. So on September 30th, and this is where I started to get really mad when I dug into this. On September 30th, Sergeant Carver actually went and spoke with a radio station in Seattle and told anybody who was listening that Misty was a runaway and her mother knew exactly where she was and that she was safe and sound. And that did so much damage to the investigation because businesses took the flyers down. Nobody wanted to talk to Diana. Nobody wanted to listen when she said her daughter was missing. All of, like, that was the pivotal moment for me where I think a lot of people started to tune Diana out. But there was one person who kind of became Diana's, in my opinion, saving grace for this whole thing, because I think Diana would have pushed and pushed and pushed, but without this individual, it may have been a little harder for her to register with some people that she was able to connect with and eventually convince that things were going on. Now, his name was Corey Bober, and he was obsessed with the Green River unaliver. So this was a serial unaliver who had murdered girls and women. A lot of them were prostitutions in King County, Washington in the 1980s. Corey actually believed that he knew who the unaliver was and that his name was Randy Auxiger. And he was so convinced because one night Randy had told him something that only the police knew. And Randy swore up and down that a drunk police officer captain at a bar had told him this, but Bober never believed it. Bober believed that he was the Green River unaliver. So Corey spent a lot of his time going through different things and looking at different murders that were occurring, and he actually kind of started to annoy the police department, just so we're clear. But he noticed that there were two murders of girls named Kimberly DeLange and Anne Chebatani, who were two teenagers that disappeared in 1988 and 1999, or 1990. So keep in mind that Misty went missing in 1992. So you have one missing in 1988, one missing in 1990, and Misty in 1992. Their bodies were all found within 100 feet of each other with Kimberly and Anna. So Kimberly and Anna were found within 100 feet of each other. Anna was unalived 2 years and 1 month after Kimberly. And basically, Corey had been telling people that someone was going to end up showing up unalived in September, because it turns out Misty, when she was unalived, was 2 years and 1 month since Anna had been unalived. So he saw this as a pattern. Kimberly passed away 2 years and a month later, Anna passed away, and then 2 years and a month later, Misty passed away. There's only 3, but for him that was enough. Now, Corey, he does have OCD, but so that may have been why he was able to connect the pattern a little bit more. But essentially, he reached out to Misty's mother and was urging her to just basically hound law enforcement until they did something, because he was convinced that the person who had unalived the first 2 girls was also the person who had unalived Misty. Basically, though, police tried to tell Misty's mom, Diana, that she should not associate with Corey, that he was crazy, and they viewed him as paranoid, unstable, and just obnoxious. So anything that he kind of had to do with, they just tended to write it off. Now, October 5th, so September 17th is when she went missing. October 5th, Corey contacts Sergeant Carver at the Puyallup PD, and he insists, Carver insisted to Bober that Misty Copeland was a runaway and informed that her case had been handed over to the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. Now, the Pierce County Sheriff's Department was the one that had actually taken Diana seriously when Misty went missing and told her you shouldn't have to wait 30 days. And the reason it had been handed over was because the Puyallup police had decided she didn't get kidnapped or anything. She just ran away. So it deflected back to the Pierce County Sheriff's Department because that's where she was from. Technically, she was a resident there. They just didn't want to deal with her, essentially. So it's insane how bad this investigation was. That was when they learned that Deputy Brian Coburn was in charge of the investigation. But Coburn had basically been given all of these details from Carver, who was the original sergeant in charge, and given the notes that he was given, was made to feel that Misty was a runaway, and actually made an inappropriate remark to Coburn and said even if he found Misty, he would not tell Coburn or her mother where she was, which really infuriated Coburn and Diana, because you're this police officer, you're supposed to be looking for this missing 14-year-old girl, and you're saying that you wouldn't tell the mother you had found her if you found her. So throughout October, the Puyallup police had finally had enough of Corey. That so much so that they knew he was like a low-level rug dealer and like really just schmeed, like weed. He was just doing that. He would just kind of sell it here and there. So they arranged a whole rug bust on him, and he was facing up to 4 years in prison. They essentially then, after arresting him, went to Diana and tried to convince her that this man was crazy. He didn't have her best interest at heart. She needed to file a restraining order on him. And towards the end of October, she actually did file a restraining order. But it only took her about 2 weeks to realize that Corey was the only one, whether he's insane or not, the only one who believed her. The only one who was defending her, helping her, and the only one that was looking into the investigation other than a runaway. So she ended up dropping the restraining order and coming back to Corey, who did eventually end up pleading guilty because he thought it would mean that since he pleaded guilty, they would work with him on his sentencing. But the police had had so much of him that they convinced everybody that he needed to go to jail. And Corey did actually go to jail for the schmeed that he was dealing. Now, in November of 1992, roughly around the time that Diana had dropped the restraining order, Corey actually organized weekend search parties. And there were about 20 people in each search party over the weekend that would go out into the woods where the other two girls that Corey believed were related to Misty's disappearance were found. But they never really found anything. December 2nd rolls around, and the Pierce County Sheriffs officially decide that they're going to come out and they're going to announce Misty as missing under suspicious circumstances. So I don't know what changed their mind. I don't know what made them flip on their decision, but something in them clicked and they started to view this as something happened to Misty and there was something suspicious going on. Later in December, Diana actually would try to unalive herself at one point, and she would mix alcohol with antidepressants, but it failed, and she was really returned home within a few days. They didn't hold her long. They didn't make her go to a mental hospital. She just sent back home bada bing, bada boom. It is what it is. She returns home to this empty house and has to deal with all this. So this is all in 1992. Okay, so Misty has gone from being a runaway to being a missing child to being a runaway to being a missing child to considered missing under suspicious circumstances. And Diana basically has been the one with Corey heading the entire investigation. So there is a station called KOMO where they had a show that was Northwest Afternoon, and Diana and Trina, who was Misty's friend, actually appeared on that in January of 1993. And there was a King County detective named Jim Doyon who was also investigating the Green River Killer, who went on with them. And the station actually, as they aired this, had opened up the phone line so that anybody could call with tips if they had them. And a woman calls and claims that she had seen Misty walking down a road in Puyallup and passing by a 7-Eleven that was just across the street. This was about 10 o'clock, she said. So Misty's friend had said she saw Misty at 8:45, and then she had left, gone separate ways, all of that stuff. This gave them another time frame because the bus driver had said between like 10:30 was when he had kind of tried, or not 10:30, between 8 and 9, I believe, was when he had tried to explain to her she could get the ride to Tacoma and then take Tacoma to her home. So this pushed back kind of where people, like a timeline for Misty, which did kind of get overlooked because it would turn out that the woman was never properly contacted, questioned, interviewed by the Puyallup or the Pierce County detectives. They essentially just let her fall through the cracks. And later on, when they would reopen the investigation, all of the footage from the news station was gone. They didn't have the woman's name, and she just kind of faded into things. So this is a lot. So the next day after they aired that show, the detective would actually go to the Highway 410 dumping ground, which was near mile marker 30, and kind of looked around, but he did not find anything that was of interest. And we would get to January 10th of 1992. And that day is important because there is an individual named Robert Leslie Hickey who kidnapped and sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl in Puyallup, 5 blocks away from where Misty had disappeared. Now, this girl actually survived and was able to make sure that he was convicted on first-degree rape. But because it was his first offense, he was given 5 years with probation, or he was given, 7 years and was eligible for early probation. He ended up getting out in 5. But what's important is that he drove a red Camaro. And that'll be important because on February 7th of 1993, so we're talking months after Misty has gone missing, Corey arranges another search party, and they actually find Misty's clothing in a ditch near the intersection of State Highway 410 and Waco Road. So if you're from the area, you might know where that is. They had been rolled up and kind of either tossed or placed in this muddy ditch. And at first, the Puyallup and the Pierce County Police actually looked at Misty's mom and Corey because Corey had been telling them, you need to look in this area because it was within the area where the other girls had been found. So they accused Corey and Diana of having put the clothing there to try and stage something to kind of garner interest. But essentially nothing ever came of that. It was found that it was only about 10 minutes away from where the other 2 girls had been found. So it wasn't without reason at that point that even the police began to think that the two girls who had gone missing had something to do with Misty's disappearance as well. Keep in mind, the two other girls, between their disappearances, there was 2 years and 1 month. And then between Misty and the last girl who had been unalived, it was 2 years and 1 month. So it's a loose pattern because there's only 3 girls missing, but it's enough that even the police are kind of like, okay, maybe there is actually something here, and Corey's like not crazy totally. Now, one of the reasons that Corey was actually looked at by the mom, Diana, and the police. At one point, they all kind of suspected he might have done it. They actually scheduled a polygraph test with him. He ended up canceling it. But a couple things about Corey. Number one, he had no history of violence. He was possibly agoraphobic from everything I found. There's no there's no hard, yes, he is. He was able to at least help arrange the searches, things like that. But he definitely had OCD, and he did not have a driver's license. He kind of was looked at first because he was so active in trying to help find Misty, but it actually turned up that he had an alibi, and the alibi was that he had been with several people and gotten beaten up the night that Misty went missing. So it's not the greatest alibi to have, but there was the alibi that people could actually vouch that he was being beaten up rather than out kind of preying on young girls. Now, the clothes had been out of the element for an extended period of time. They were covered in mud, but they were able to find DNA, which in 2009 they would test, and it turned out to not be Misty's or Corey's, but an unknown male. So I believe they had tested a couple people just to make sure it wasn't like someone within the family or things like that. But they also found red paint chips in the clothing. So if you remember, Robert Leslie Hickey had driven a red Camaro. So that kind of threw a dent in the plans, because at that point, then you've got this man who in January tried to abduct this girl, tried to unalive her, and at the end of the day was arrested and put in jail only a couple months after Misty had gone missing. So that was February 7th that they found the clothing. A couple days later, on February 20th, they then found Misty's hairpick, toothbrush, her hairpick and toothbrush, which were both things that she kept in her purse, about half a mile away from where her clothing had been left. And then throughout February at that point, the investigator Doyen had actually gone back and interviewed Misty's friend again, which was Trina, who was with Misty that night. And it had been about 6 months, keep in mind, since Trina and Misty had parted ways, and nobody saw Misty again. Doyen, even though Misty was about 15 years old, decided that he was just going to go all out and showed Trina pictures of Misty's jeans. And it was said that Trina just began to cry and burst into tears. And this was kind of what cracked the surface of a new understanding of that night, because Trina admitted that she had lied originally. They didn't part ways, saying that they would both walk home. Trina had actually called to get a ride from her boyfriend, Michael Reiner, at the time, who was 23 years old. And Michael Reiner, when he was 16 years old, was accused of having raped an 11-year-old girl at knife point, but no charges had ever been filed, and the accusations were there, but there was nothing ever on his record. So by the law standpoint, he didn't do it. Like, you had to look at it like he didn't do it, because the charges were never pressed, but the accusation still stood. Now, you've got a 15-year-old dating a 23-year-old. Trina actually had asked Misty, hey, do you want Michael to take you home? But much like Misty's mom had said, I don't want you going with Ruben because I don't trust him, Misty had told Trina that she wouldn't go with Michael because she didn't trust Michael. And that created a scenario where the police questioned if Michael may have taken Trina home, turned back around, come and picked up Misty, and then something went wrong and he dumped her body, all of that stuff. He did, however, take and pass a polygraph test. So they kind of didn't really look too hard at him in that moment. Now, Trina then brought up again, the whole thing with Ruben, that Misty had called Ruben wouldn't come get her, and then, Misty called again, Ruben still wouldn't come get her, so Misty said she was just going to walk home. In April of 1993, the police found out that Reiner, Trina's boyfriend, was actually selling his car, and it wasn't in great condition. It was a blue 1981 Ford Escort. And they actually were so focused on Reiner in that moment that they had an undercover police officer go in and purchase the vehicle so that they could run forensics on the inside of the car, but nothing came back with anything to do with Misty. Ironically, Schmidt, who is the original individual that everyone's looking at, was, or Ruben, was selling his car essentially around the same time. And it was a red 1974 Chevy Nova, but instead of selling it to a person, he took it to a wrecking yard. And it went unnoticed and the police never cared about it because by then they were looking at Reiner and not Ruben. So all of that went unnoticed. And then in July of 1993, detectives called Reiner and were kind of hoping for like a Hail Mary, but essentially he was eliminated as a suspect at that point because they just didn't find that there was any connection. There was no proof he went back to like see Misty or try to get Misty. He didn't drive a red car, which they had found the red paint chips, and they kind of felt like they were back at square one, and it became all about Ruben again. September of 1993, which is 1 year after Misty went missing, Ruben's roommate, James Tinsley, was finally interviewed by the police. And he states that he had been in the apartment the night of Misty's disappearance, and according to him, Ruben had a 13-year-old girl that was visiting him at the house. Keep in mind, Ruben was 18 years old. When Misty had called asking for a ride, the girlfriend, actually, who's 13 years old, got upset and started acting jealous, and then she ended up leaving. And about 5 to 10 minutes after he left, the roommate says, or after she left, the roommate says that Ruben then left, and he did not return home until like after midnight. Now, Ruben would come back when the police went to question him about all this, and he would say that he essentially had left the house, but he went to his grandmother's farm, and that he was prone to blackouts, and he didn't remember the second phone call. He didn't remember going to his grandmother's house. He just woke up there. And that was kind of where everything sat. I will tell you, Ruben passed a polygraph test at that point, but he was arrested in 2000 for theft. And then in 2006, his wife had to take out a protective order because he threatened to unalive her and then burn their house down. So in 1996, there was kind of a blip where interest was drawn back because the media was circulating these stories that Misty would be making contact with her parents again. And the Puyallup police actually got in contact with Misty's estranged father, gave him all this hope that Misty was going to call, and then nothing ever happened. So they kind of just labeled her a runaway again, and it is what it is. She's gone. Nobody's really looking for her. Thank you, Io. 2000 comes around. Diana, Misty's mom, has Misty legally declared unalived. She held a funeral for Misty, and Corey actually talked to the Parkland Church, and they ended up hosting the ceremony for free, and he was able to convince local flower shops to donate flowers. The media also kind of came in again and helped to raise awareness of Misty's disappearance. Diana also in 2000 hired a PI, but that PI could not find anything. Now, May 14th of 2001, there is a 24-year-old girl who is walking home from church in the rain, and it's roughly 10 o'clock at night, and Robert Leslie Hickey, who we know is the individual from back in 1993 that had attempted to unalive the girl after he had sexually assaulted her, had been released for some years. He only served 5 years and was given like probation. So he had approached the young woman asking if he could get a cigarette from her. She said no. She crossed to the other side of the street and felt weird enough that she pulled her cell phone out and dialed 911. And Hickey actually rushed her and pushed her down a 15-foot embankment on the side of the road, then proceeded to climb down and attempt to assault her. But he actually caught a glimpse of the phone screen and saw that she had called 911 and ran. So she was able to get home. She called the police. He was found convicted of attempted second-degree rape and was sent to prison for life with no possibility of parole. So this kind of sparked the idea again that maybe Hickey was responsible for Misty's disappearance, and Misty may have been the only one that didn't survive. The other thing was that in November 30th of 2021, Gary Ridgway was arrested and found to be the Green River serial unaliver. And he claims that he never did anything to Misty. So in 2013, the Puyallup police actually reopened things. Now, in the process of all of this, those red paint chips were sent to be tested in a lab, but they got lost. So they were either at the lab when they had a fire and lost that way, or the police department lost them and just don't want to own up to it. Nobody knows who had them last. Nobody knows where they were going, what they were doing. They're just gone. So in 2013, the Puyallup Police Department decided they were going to open the investigation again, and they actually started to ask that people who were at the fair in 1992 on September 17th share any pictures they had so that they could look at them and see if there was anything they offered in terms of Can you guys put OnlyFans on the mute list, please? Thank you.
Working on it.
Okay, thank you. I know, Tess, I know. We're good. So, essentially, they relaunched the investigation in 2013, and the only thing of interest that really came from that was that they found out there was a woman who claimed that she saw Misty get into a car with an older man, but that man was driving a yellow Chrysler Cordoba. and he was in his mid-30s, and at the time he had a prior history of schmeck's assault on women with personal, and he had personal and professional ties in Puyallup. So it was possible that he may have been somebody that they overlooked because nobody ever pursued that lead, to the point to where it just kind of like came in, but they didn't even really go to interview this woman to see what she had to say about things. So that is really the last bit of the case. And it is really complex because there's a lot of names involved with it. There's a lot of people that they've suspected may have been it. There was also a lot going on at the time around the area. You had the Green River serial unaliver. You had Hickey, who was attempting to abduct a girl. But you also had two police departments that could have worked together to attempt to try and help Misty's mom find some closure. But it really just turned into the police trying to write them off and pretend that Misty was just going to randomly and miraculously show up one day. They still haven't found her body. The clothing is really the only trace left of Misty. She'd be in her 40s now, and like I said, her mom had her declared unalived in 2000, but if she is alive, there's age progressions online and things like that where you can see what she'd look like today. Yeah, they really messed it up. So yeah.
It really seems like the police department just didn't care at all.
Yeah. I think what's really sad is like Misty's mom clearly knew she did wrong when she was getting welfare and like getting food stamps, and she went and did the right thing, but because that was on her record, they used it against her to say she just basically wasn't trustworthy.
And they did that just so that they couldn't do their jobs.
Yeah. And it got passed around between the stations and the counties and everything like that. And yeah. Hold on one second. Y'all don't stop blocking. Stop muting. Stop don't block. It's not worth it. Like when you block, it just does a bunch of stuff to the live. They're trying to come in and do this. Just I don't know why it's not stopping. Thank you. It's okay. It is what it is. But does anybody have any questions or anything? Sorry. You can't have anything.
I know technically we shouldn't acknowledge things like that, but to anybody that thinks it's funny to troll while we're talking about this and to go and put an OnlyFans link when we're talking about the essay of children who are not even on this earth anymore, you're fucking sick.
Yep.
You're sick. I know we're not really supposed to like address that shit, but that's sick. You're sick.
Love Button said that she went to elementary school with Misty, and her family were good people. They deserve justice. Now, Love But her mom passed away without knowing what happened to her, correct? Yes, the case is still open. So basically where it sits at is the police reopened the case in 2013 and were saying that they would really appreciate people who were at the fair, the Puyallup Fair, to go back, look at their photographs, and if they have any from the 17th of September in 1992, send those in because they would be able to go through them and maybe they might find something in those photographs. But I mean, that in and of itself is kind of a loose act considering it's over 20 years after. Polly.
When they went to go and finally do the right thing and do the right thing, it was already too late at that point. Like, way too late.
Yeah. Well, and the police today definitely have acknowledged that the police back then severely mishandled the case and that bad police work was 100% involved in making sure that this case sat for so long with no real forward movement. I will say Misty's mom always was of the mindset that Ruben knew what happened to her daughter. And in my opinion, it is really sus because he told her one story on September 18th in the morning. And then by the evening, he's telling a second story. And then come 6 months later in February, he's telling police that he's prone to blackouts. He doesn't remember the second call, that he woke up at his grandmother's farm. And something I forgot to mention too, Ruben had actually told people that he knew where Misty's body was and that it was buried somewhere on his grandmother's farm. But when police went to him and asked him about that, he said that he had only done it to get people off his back because he felt like if he told them he knew where it was, they would leave him alone. And nobody reported that to the police at first.
If they would have talked to him sooner than waiting a year to actually interview him,
Mm-hmm.
and the roommate as well, they would have found out he left his apartment or house or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and like, can we talk about the fucking ages? Like, he's 18, he has a 16-year-old roommate, a 13-year-old girlfriend. Trina, Misty's friend, is 15 years old, dating a 23-year-old. Like,
I just want to know if the 23-year-old was sus, how come the 18-year-old wasn't sus? And by the time they had already got suspicious of him, it was already too late. Like, they went and bought an innocent man's car. And, I mean, maybe he could have known about it, who knows? But, like, apparently, allegedly, an innocent man's car, but they didn't go and buy his.
that wasn't even the color of the paint chips they found because he had a blue car. Love button. I actually kind of wondered if anybody ever thought that because when Corey had went to the one officer in Pierce County, he was told that like Misty was a runaway, and even if the officer ever found her where she was at, he would never tell Corey or Diana. So I thought it was really weird that this officer is saying that they would not tell the mother that they found her. Spoken a lot amongst our parents. Yeah. And I do remember the officer who did go out and do like a search, just kind of poking around. He had kind of looked in that area where her clothing was found and didn't find anything, which had kind of made them look even more at if Diana and Corey had planted Misty's clothes there, but it ended up like people were like, no, we don't think that. But from everything I could find, the biggest thing is that Corey recognizing that pattern kind of made it to where everybody thinks that those three girls' disappearances were related because you've got three girls who went missing 2 years and 1 month after each other.
So, another thing is if they would have done all this sooner with the boyfriend and the roommate, they could have actually got a warrant to search the boyfriend's car since it was the correct color, but because they waited so long, it got demolished.
Yeah. Well, and it's sad too
How
because
old were the other two girls that were unalived?
They
You
were
know?
teens, but I don't know their exact ages.
But they were under 18?
Yeah, or at
So
least
maybe this
legal
guy could have been it.
teenagers. I don't remember. Yeah, that's why they started
Okay.
questioning the Green River serial schmiller. I don't think it was Corey. I think Corey is like your typical, like if you're watching a movie, he's your typical next door neighbor whack job. Like nobody takes him serious, but because he's got some mental health issues and he kind of annoys people because he pushes and pushes and pushes. But it does, like, Corey did a lot for Misty's mom that I don't know. I personally feel like Ruben had more to do with it than Corey would have. That's my thing. Yeah, we did talk about the Green River and how he had been active and Corey kind of felt we talked about Corey. Yeah, Corey wasn't there mentally enough for that. Um, Corey had actually thought there was the other guy that was the Green River, and even when they caught and convicted the Green River unaliver, he was still convinced that they got the wrong person and that it was this man that he'd always focused on. I think it was the police officer, Hello Kitty says. Who do you guys think it was?
Did they convict the one who eventually got uh arrested for the Green River? Was he convicted for those two other girls?
Mm-mm.
Or no?
He says
Okay.
he was interviewed and swears that he had nothing to do with those girls. It does.
That makes me kind of think Ruben did
Yeah.
something to those two girls and her.
Well, and the thing is like when you look at Ruben, like he wasn't really a stranger to her. He'd grown up knowing her, and everybody said that he had like an unhealthy obsession with Misty when they lived in the trailer park area together. And like the mom was definitely opposed to Misty even calling him. Like she didn't want Misty to have anything to do with Ruben because she had literally caught him on the phone saying that he always was horny because of her. Like she made him horny. And that's an 18-year-old talking to a 14-year-old, so the mom didn't think it was appropriate. And I would imagine he could have tried something and then it gone south and he did something to her if he went and tried to pick her up and everything.
Was Ruben ever given a polygraph?
Yes, he did. The first one was inconclusive. The second one he passed. Corey never took the polygraph, but honestly, I don't think Corey was mentally there enough to be able to take one. Trina was the one with the 23-year-old boyfriend. She was Misty's 15-year-old son. And I don't know if the parents knew that she was around this 23-year-old or not, but yeah, Ruben had, like, literally the night that Misty went missing, he was with his 13-year-old girlfriend, the roommate said. And she got really jealous when Misty called him. So she left, and then Ruben left shortly after. So, which Ruben swore that he never left the house because he didn't have the money for gas. But then Misty called and told him, hey, here's how you can get into my house and get money for gas and then come get me.
I think the bright side in cases like missing persons is there's always that family member that never stops fighting for them. Ever.
Yep.
Ever. Like, there's definitely one that I will probably be doing next week, and the way that the family fought for justice was crazy. Like,
Yeah. Well, and she does love, but correct me if I'm wrong, she does have a younger brother now who after the mom passed away, is still actively trying to find her, too. I believe it's her brother.
So, I actually don't really talk about this because it's my stepmom's family and because of like doxing purposes and stuff. But I actually do want to be like more open about myself. And this is actually crazy. So, my stepmom is related to Steven Stainer. If anybody knows who Steven Stainer is. So that might be something that I talk about too, maybe, maybe not. Um, and I know she's not lying because her mother has the Stainer name. Yeah.
Insane how things like that work. Thank you for answering the love button, too. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say when they came out with, or not when they came out with, but they came out with the My First Name is Steven, I think is what they called the movie. And I remember her showing that to us at a young age.
I could see that. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Here, let me change the layout because I feel like there we go. That way it's easier for people to tap and stuff and they're not requesting in the box every 2 seconds.
Just in case anybody didn't know, if you tap her box, it won't request.
Oh, I didn't know that. So how is everybody feeling? This was the first night we were doing this, so I'm excited. I think it's going to go really good.
Yeah, and that was a really interesting case. Those are some really interesting cases.
I think all 3 of them were. Like, you obviously, like, Mama's was solved. Yours is at a point where they have to appeal it, and then we've got a missing person. Like, kind of one of a different resolution was really cool to hear. Yay, Lisa. Well, we're definitely going to do it every Thursday, I think, unless, like, Mama and Aries want to do it, like, every other Thursday. But,
I'm cool with every Thursday.
I am 2
Yeah,
start
so am I.
times. Yay! So we'll plan on
If
every
anything does
Thursday.
come up, like with my kids or anything, I'll let you know ahead of time.
Yeah, and we can figure out what to do from there. We could always bump it up time-wise, too, if we need, like, do it later if we need to or something. Aw, Katie, I hope you feel better. I actually, like, this morning was like, I don't know what I want to talk about. And I opened TikTok and someone had a thread that was like, what's the one missing persons case that sits with you most? And Misty was like in the comment section and I was like, what's this about? And I Googled it because I'd never heard of it and learned all this stuff today. Katos. Oh.
I'm weird when I'm cooking. I like to watch on Facebook like the body cams of when like true crime stuff is happening. So that's how I get my daily dose of true crime.
I like to watch
I watch on
those
YouTube.
in the courtroom things on YouTube. All of it, and I'm so happy like to be able to discuss it. Like, not happy, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm really glad. It felt like it was kind of like divine intervention because I listen to a lot of true crime, so I feel like if I hadn't heard about it, a lot of people haven't. Okay, I will, Casey.
I was gonna say, normally I don't accept messages, but if anyone has any cases or anything, I'll look at it. I might not get back to you right away, because I barely reply to anyone. I look at it and then I'm like, okay, and then I move on. But, and I'm sure Aries wouldn't mind getting messages on cases people might be interested in and things like that. For me, I'm gonna mainly, like I said earlier, focus on true crime with a little supernatural kick to it. Like maybe, I don't know, like the one I did with Slender Man.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I want to focus on.
I was kind of thinking too, I don't know if I want to do this or not. I've always kind of been really hard. It's always hard to like do things that are more that are recent because they're not always solved or they're going through the courts and stuff. But I was thinking about like maybe on Monday nights, like a 5 minute just like missing segment, but instead of highlighting like bigger stories, focusing on like a person who's missing that the news might, yes, the button. We're definitely getting back to it a little bit. Um, okay, I will, Casey. But I was thinking it would probably be a good idea to highlight like somebody the news wouldn't normally cover because we know that, you know, if you're not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl, it's harder for the media to pick up on it. So,
I don't know about Aries, but I would like, because you mentioned missing people, if we could each find a missing person and do Missing Monday.
yeah. That's like, and that's my thing is like I really want to focus if I do like missing stories, like I really do want to like try to focus too a little bit on like things that people might not hear because they're just not as spoken about. Like there was a woman who went missing here in town and it was a couple of years ago. I don't think they've ever found her. I'd have to look into it. But she was a black woman and basically like they did not like nobody ever, it never felt like anybody was taking it serious. Like the family was trying to find her and felt like her boyfriend or something may have done it, but nobody was like taking it serious as like a missing person. They just were saying she probably like left and was going to come back sooner or later, kind of like Misty.
Yeah, I would say if anyone knows of a missing person that's really not getting news attention, you can message us that too.
Yeah. And it sucks because I was going to put this on YouTube, but now I have to figure out how to join the two parts together. Because we had to restart with the audio lag. Hi.
You could just do two separate uploads,
Yeah,
part
I
one or
just
two.
feel bad because like it divides Aries in half. But I can put them in a playlist together at least so they show up together. I did give you guys both access to download lives though, so if you want to create like a YouTube channel, you can upload your parts to it too.
It's up to Aries because I don't even know how to look for that.
I tell you what, one thing I was thinking about the other day, I don't know how many of you remember this, but there was that case where they found all of those bodies in the field behind the jail in like Mississippi last year. And there were like over 100 or 200 bodies they found. It was like one of those places where they buried people who they didn't know, like they didn't have anybody else to come get the bodies or things like that. I can't remember the terminology for it, but I remember that like two of the individuals that they had found, like one of them, the mother had been searching relentlessly for him, and cops had been involved, and basically like two of them had ended up looking like the police had buried the bodies there to try to cover up crimes that other police officers may have been involved in. Like one of the guys might have actually been hit, and instead of contacting the mom because he had his wallet and everything or telling her when she came in to report him missing, they just acted like they didn't know where he was. And there was some wrongdoing between the coroner's office and the police that helped it go unnoticed, and it was a whole thing. I remember making a video about that. It was like 5 minutes long because there was so much in it. Yeah.
Aries, put a picture up of your girl just in case someone has questions when they come in, so they see all of our things.
Yeah, so if anybody missed the first part, Mama talked about the case where the girls believed in Slender Man and had attempted to take the life of their classmate. And then Aries talked about Alex Trevino? Is that her last name?
Alexee Trevizo.
That's it, Alexee Trevizo. And then I had spoken on Misty Copsey. So this was so fun. I forgot how much true crime can like bring, just like being able to talk about it.
I like it because we get to go and share the stories of like all the people who a lot of people probably don't even know about their cases.
Yeah. Love Button, I actually do plan on talking about that one again. Her name is Holly Dunn Pendleton, and it was the railroad unaliver that had done that. She was in college at Kentucky University and out with her boyfriend, and he was unalived, and she barely survived.
Do you eventually want to talk about? I don't know if it would require all three of us because it's a big case and it's still. I don't think it's still. I can't. I'd have to look up if it's unsolved still or what the Delphi murders.
Oh,
murders.
yeah. Yeah, that one's a big one.
Yeah.
I thought he was convicted. I know he went to court. Let me check.
Yeah, I can't remember if he got convicted or not.
I had like 11 pages of notes in Word document, by the way, for tonight.
I said Mallory's the overachiever.
I mean, you know me. I wanted to go and start doing true crime based off of my hometown, and oh my god, that would be a whole can of worms.
They found him guilty in
Aries?
2024 and sentenced him to 130 years.
Okay. Aries, Katie says she knows about my case, but she doesn't know about yours. I didn't know if you wanted to give a brief.
Yeah, you can give another overview if you want.
Basically, she went to the hospital complaining about back pain, and they gave her a pregnancy test. They discovered she was pregnant. She didn't tell them she was pregnant. She just said she had severe back pain. I think it was 50 minutes, so almost an hour after they found out she was pregnant, she went to the bathroom by herself. She was left in there for 18 minutes by herself. And then she gave birth to her baby boy, who was born alive, and put him in the trash can, tied it up, put another trash liner in there to cover that up, and they found her baby 30 minutes later. So, yeah. That's the case that I covered was Alexee Trevizo.
Really quickly, I'm going to reset so this ends and I can download the live a little easier and then come back and you guys can come up and we can answer questions and things like that still, just so you guys know. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry to drop everybody, but land softly.